So something else that I wanted to get into was something that you were very adamant about in your campaign, which is term limits, and knowing that politicians like Mr. Dole, who have been in Congress for over 25 years.
Yeah.
So if elected, so how many terms would you propose, and would it just be for like the Congress, the Senate, or maybe even the Supreme Court as well?
So no, it would be for Congress, for both houses there, right? So for the House and for the Senate.
Okay.
And I'm negotiable on this, and I understand why I have to be negotiable, because I've talked to people on both opinions of term limits. One side says, well, we have to value experience, and not only that, but a freshman term, which is 2 years, a freshman term is really not very effective, even if you're a great rep, and here's why. The first year as a freshman, you're learning the ropes, you're making connections, you're trying to make things happen. Second year, you're back in an election year, so you're back trying to get elected again. So I understand that argument. However, I don't think, I mean, look, nearly 3 decades in the same office, far too long. Far, far too long. That's an elitist ruling class. So what I would say is 3 to 5 2-year terms. What that comes out to is 2-year terms, 6 to 10 years. I'd say 6 is about the lower end of what I'd allow, and then 10 is the absolute max. I'd say I don't think there's any argument for someone to be in the same office for more than 10 years.
Right, so, but what about the Supreme Court? Why don't you support on a term limit?
Term limit, yeah. So the Supreme Court, the stability that we see in courts is there because they're not politicians. So they're supposed to be apolitical, right? So we know that, of course, they have their personal beliefs, but ACB has actually talked about this a lot, how when she's interpreting the Constitution, if she's doing her job right, and if her fellow justices are doing their job right, they're interpreting the Constitution. They're not acting as an elected official. They're not acting as a partisan force. And for that reason, I think the stability and the wisdom that we're going to be able to be given by justices who are appointed there and who are not acting on a partisan purpose, it brings a nice aspect to government that is typically changing, because we see the president changing, the House changing, the Senate changing, and the Supreme Court's kind of that rock that holds it all together. I think that's a valuable thing. That's why our founders made it that way.
And for the record, like you're referring to Amy Coney.
ACB,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
Amy Coney Barrett,
Okay.
yeah. It's her name's kind of a mouthful, so yeah. ACB, and then we got AOC, and yeah, everyone's got an acronym these days.
Yeah.
Like I'm in the military again, you know.
Yeah.
Two militaries.
Yeah, that's right, Luke. All right, Luke. But what would you say to people who do oppose like term limits in government, like in the Congress and the Senate? Because I guess maybe some arguments would be, would be maybe government overseers on important programs. There would be an increase of that. That was something mentioned on postandcourier.com. So what would you say to people who
first of all, I'd say a lot of my red flags go up when I hear the people whose jobs are in question voting on whether or not they get to keep their jobs, right? And that's essentially what it is. So it's Congress, the House and the Senate. The reason that they haven't passed term limits is because they're the ones in power. They're the ones who would be limited. And this is a bipartisan topic. This is one of the reasons I love term limits. If you look at Pew polls, like 80 to 90% of Americans on both sides of the aisle support term limits. Really, the only people who don't support them are the elitists in power. And that's very telling to you. When the country is unified saying, look, half of us hate Trump, half of us love Trump, but we all want term limits. And the people in power are saying, nope, we're not giving them to you. I think that's extremely telling. And the other thing I'd say is that we see that term limits weren't implemented at our country's founding, largely because they weren't needed back then. Our system has evolved and changed. A few things that they have evolved and changed. What we're doing right now, media, name and facial recognition, social media, print media. These are all massive advantages to an incumbent that simply did not exist when our country was founded. Also, the FEC, founded in the 1970s, gives massive monetary advantages I could talk to you for a long time about to an incumbent that are not given to a challenger. Also, obviously, the 1970s, a far cry from our country's founding. So we've evolved to the point where we need term limits. It's a bipartisan topic. And I think that the elitists should really be willing to do something for the people here.
Now, with the elitists you're referring to, are you referring to people on both sides?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I would love, as you know, I'm running as a Republican. I'm really more of an anti-establishment Republican. But of course, you'd love to point at the other side, the opposition, and say it's just them. They're the only. But I can't do that in good conscience. They're spineless, sellout, elitist Republicans. I'm against them too. I want them term limited. It's not like I'm saying just Democrats. Get them all out.